Standing by, the Terry and Ted podcast is sponsored by the UPS Store Canada.
Shall we get the show on the road?
Let us.
All right. What do we do now? Hi there, I'm Terry DeMonte. That's Ted Byrne. It's another edition of the Standing By podcast, now weekly. It's very exciting. And Ted and I had a meeting, so everything will be okay, no problem whatsoever.
It's going to run like a well-oiled machine. I have no idea why I dressed in layers.
Yeah, I was
because in the
it's
studio,
raining today.
It's raining, and in the studio, it's 100 degrees as usual. You see this shirt?
Yes.
I bought this shirt about 10 years ago at the Giant Tiger in Papineauville for $7.
Were you visiting Montebello?
I have no idea what I was doing in
Papineauville.
Papineauville. And I don't know why I was at the Giant Tiger, but I saw this shirt and I said, "Oh, it's a pretty nice shirt."
That's
$7.
Unbelievable, and it's lasted for 10 years.
It has stood the test of time.
Wow.
It's comfortable. It's a nice soft flannel type of
you can tell people you bought it at the fashion house, La Maison de Géant, Tigre Géant. Oh, this little thing?
It's Tigre Géant.
By the way, if you're not watching and you've downloaded the podcast, it's like a checkered sort of lumberjack affair.
It looks like something you'd buy in Papineauville at the Giant Tiger.
You were in the area of Guy Lafleur's birthplace.
Is that near Thurso?
It is near Thurso on that side of the Ottawa River. Yeah. The only time I've been to Papineauville was when I was either visiting my friend Matt Kundle at his country house, or going to the Chateau of Montebello, which is is not too far from there.
Maybe that's where I was.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd stayed at the Chateau Montebello.
Yeah,
because that's
possible.
I can't think of anything else that would have taken me there.
Let's say thank you to our good friends at the UPS Store Canada. Boy, are they going to be busy in these days. If you're smart and you've got Christmas parcels to get going, you'll want to get in to the UPS Store soon. Sooner than later. This is, what are we? Today is the 27th of November. And if you want to get parcels, far afield, whether it's across the pond or across the country, the UPS Store Canada can handle that for you. And with the postal strike, I think they're going to be busier than normal.
Far afield is a good expression. I like
thank
that.
you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You sound well-read when you say that.
That's like fleet of foot?
Yes.
When you go into a UPS store, you'll know right away you're dealing with somebody who lives in your community who can help you figure out what you need to do in terms of shipping, what kind of shipping you need to do, how fast the parcel needs to get there, how well it needs to be packed. Some things, if you're just shipping books, you can throw them in a box and tape it up and be done with it. If you're shipping something fragile, that's a different kettle of fish. And if you're shipping a kettle of fish, that's a bad thing. They can help you with that. They also, in the meantime, if you're struggling because you rely on the post office for your home business, UPS can tell you how they can help you with that too. They've got a place where you can set up an outside mailbox so that not all the parcels come to your home. And in this struggling time for small entrepreneurs who rely on the post office, you can rely on the people at the UPS store. There are over 400 locations across the country. It doesn't matter where you are, where you're listening to the podcast. If you live in Canada, there is a UPS store in your community. As we always say, there's one just around the corner from Ted.
That's right. There's one on Sources in DDO, on St. Charles in Kirkland, on Don Quixote in the Island of Parrots, and in the Walmart in Vaudreuil, all of which are a stone's throw from my house, although in a couple of those cases, I might have to pick the stone up and throw it a second at a time.
Okay. Yeah. Arm's not what it was?
No. Rotator cuff. Tommy John surgery.
Do yourself a favor and get into the UPS store and see how they can help you, or go to the upsstore.ca. We thought we would start with the mailbag this week because we've got a couple of stories to tell about the mailbag, and I think maybe, Ted, will start with your visit to the picket line today.
Well, that ties into what we were talking about when we mentioned the UPS store, because the post office is on strike. That's going to make sending parcels more difficult, which is why Terry said the sooner you get to the UPS store, the better. So last week we were talking about the postal strike, and I suggested good old union mentality, taking advantage of that time of the year to work it to their advantage. And we got a note from Mike Contardi, who works at the post office and is on strike. And Mike said, listen, there are two sides to the story, and the post office is not necessarily bargaining in good faith, and we're not trying to screw people over. We're trying to take care of our families. So I just wanted to point that out. Listen to the podcast. Love it. Big fan for a long time. And I thought, how grown up of Mike to write that as opposed to, you fucking guys got no fucking idea what you're talking about, and I hate you, and I'll never listen to you again.
Right. That's the sound of Ted fake typing on the table.
So I dropped by the picket line on the way into the studio to do the recording today and said hi to Mike and met some of his colleagues. And like that.
Did they offer any insight, Ted? Because I know,
Yeah, he offered insight, and I just, I don't want. It's difficult for me to get into it because it's a news story.
Sure.
Basically, it's like, Canada Post offered this, and the union countered with that, and we want this, but they're only offering that.
Right.
But basically, the way Mike put it is that they're trying to get security for themselves and their families.
Yes. But it's very, very frustrating for the population at large because it is a familiar tactic. And I guess, if you're a union, you have to use the tactics you've got to use. But this pre-Christmas strike business seems like it's almost a Canadian tradition.
Yeah.
They never go on strike in July, not to my knowledge anyway. We always remember, because this is the time of year where people really, really rely on the post office. I saw a comment on Facebook earlier this morning saying, I have no sympathy for these guys. My business relies on them. And I know my wife Jess was really angry because we were expecting an important parcel from across the pond, and it's that's when you notice how important the postal system is.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's an antiquated institution, but I don't think it is. I think it's sort of part of the bones of a country. In Britain, in America, here in Canada. I know, people think it's, you can't send your Christmas cards, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Also, if you want to make an impression on somebody, I did this last summer. Simon Dingley, my great and good friend who worked at the CBC for many, many years and recently retired.
Yeah.
Simon and his wife, Jeannie Lee, and also a recent retire. Has Jeannie retired? I think she has as well. Yeah. Longtime CBC announcer. I went to Toronto for my son Sam's graduation from university, and I stayed at their home, and I sent them a handwritten thank you card in the mail. And boy, did that make an impression on them.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, as opposed to sending them a text or an email. Hey, thanks for letting me crash at your place.
Yeah.
Like I took the time to handwrite and mail.
Yes.
A card to them.
I think it's impactful.
For sure.
I do too. I like to send handwritten notes all the time. And I even have, it's not fancy stationery. It just has my name at the top of it. And I do the same thing. Thank you notes. Or, I sent a sympathy letter to a friend of mine who lost his dad a few weeks ago. And I'd send him a note saying, I'm not an arsehole. I sent you a sympathy note, which is now trapped in the post office somewhere. But I think it's very, very impactful.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Whether it's a sympathy note or, thanks for having us. I just did it when we stayed with friends in Vermont at their country house, and their reaction was, holy shit, a thank you note.
Yeah. I do it with women, only the letters are unsigned and there's no return address.
Good to know. I want to say hi to Joshua DeTemple. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, Josh. He sent an email saying, good afternoon, fellas. I've been listening to you guys pretty much my whole life. I'm 27 years old, and my fondest memories of you guys is being stuck in traffic on the Mercier at 6 a.m. in the back seat of my mother's car heading to Villemard to go to school at St. John of Matha Church. So my question for you is, will you guys be doing a Christmas podcast, some sort of Christmas show? I think it would be a tremendous idea. It'd be just like the old days. Thanks, you guys. I hope you see this letter. Keep up the good work. It's amazing to have the team back together. Joshua, thank you. I love hearing those commentaries about memories that we were part of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We get that often.
Well,
actually.
especially it's gratifying to hear it from someone that age.
Yes, that we were somehow
who would have been a little kid when he was listening to us on the radio.
Yeah, it's terrific. And Josh, there are no plans for a Christmas episode this season per se, but we did do a Christmas episode which is still up and available. We had some great guests on that episode. We had our moms on that episode, and it's almost 2 hours long. And if you search for it, either on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find that Christmas episode. We're going to do a nod to Christmas sometime in December, but it won't be a full-blown Christmas episode. And I also wanted to acknowledge, speaking of Christmas, Michelle Fortin, who sent us a note saying, love the podcast, I reminisce of that great chemistry between two buddies I listened to going to university, then on my first job. I have a holiday suggestion for you and a question about Vancouver, Terry. Since we're fast approaching Christmas, I always recall a horrendous rendition of Santa Claus is Coming to Town that you played in your initial Showm days, or Mix or CJD, I can't remember which. And it was, he explains in his letter, it was from a late Bahamian folk guitarist. I wouldn't call him a singer, I would call him a guitarist who's quite popular in the Bahamas. His name was Joseph Spence.
He also had a huge impact in the music industry. He was a musician's musician. Like he influenced Ry Cooder and the Grateful Dead and some big name musicians.
Yeah,
you'd wonder why.
Well, when you listen
to him,
yeah, because we only know him because of Sandy Claus Coming to Town, and I don't remember how we stumbled on it, but we stumbled on it. And in the days where I could play whatever I wanted on my Christmas show, that became sort of part of the Christmas tradition. And it's another one of those things that I appreciate a lot because it's obviously a nice memory for people, even though it's a horrendous song.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for the note, Michelle. And with regards to Vancouver, I've sent you an email answer about which areas to stay away from when you end up in downtown Vancouver. He was asking me about which neighborhoods to stay away from and how close he could get to Stanley Park. So,
isn't East Vancouver the one you want to stay away from?
Yep, yep. That's exactly what's in the note.
Okay,
to Michelle. And our email address. Have I got all the ones I wanted to mention, Ted?
What about no singing, buddy?
Oh yeah, no singing. Yeah. Could you give the email address while I find that?
I can. The email address is standingbythepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for your emails. We read them all.
We do.
We try to answer them all, and if we don't answer your email, it's because it's fallen through the cracks. But I think that we've answered, so far, I think we've answered everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Dear Terry and Ted, wanted you to know I've been listening to your podcast with a smile on my face and a tear in my eye, as your voices have been part of the radio sound of my life for so many years. Going back to the transition I made from Ralph Lockwood at CKGM to you with Patty at Showm, as well as The Mix, has been a hoot. Even catching Terry on his extra hour from Calgary back in the early 2000s was a comfort to hear. Running into Ted as he was getting into his Mini in the Showm garage and a West Island soccer game he was calling was absolutely a great memory. Glad you're back, Terry. Glad you never left Ted. Continued success to both of you and your families. Long life to your podcast. P.S. No singing, please.
Well, who's that from?
It came from Bernie Laroche.
Bernie,
and then he said, just kidding about the singing.
Bernie, I got some bad news for you. When I arrived this morning at the studio, I parked downstairs, and La Belle Louise is the parking lot attendant here, and she talks your ear off.
Yeah.
And she talks our ear off in French, and as I've said before, mon français est une catastrophe.
Yeah. I've used that, by the way. It works great.
Oh, yeah.
It works great. It's a great disarmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I took the initiative this morning, and instead of having Louise open the conversation and direct it, I just started singing to her in French. I did a Jacques Brel.
Oh, did
Ne
you?
me quitte pas, il faut t'oublier. Tu peux s'oublier qui s'enfuit déjà. Oublier le temps des malentendus. And she was, oh, Monsieur Ted! Tu chantes bien! So take that. I charmed La Belle Louise with my, what's his name?
Jacques Brel.
My Jacques Brel imitation.
Well, there you go, Bernard. Sorry about that. When she was obviously pleased.
Yeah. And then she started talking to me about French music, which I know very little about.
Yeah.
And so, I was sort of reduced to Edith Piaf. Anyway, I got to go, Louise. Je dois travailler, Louise. Salut.
There's the silence.
There's the lull. That's, yeah.
Well, we like a little lull every once in a while.
We do,
I was
yeah.
listening to a podcast today, earlier on in the drive-in this morning with Jim Gaffigan, and he was talking about how comedians use that to great effect.
I was just going to say, I saw Ben Bankus at the Third Floor Comedy Club on Crescent Street this weekend, and he's absolutely hilarious. He's a rising star in the comedy world. He's from Toronto. He's moved to Austin, Texas now, as his career continues to ascend. And there were segments of the show where he would pause for, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, and just kind of gathering himself, taking a breath, thinking to himself, where am I going next? Like not in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't have to be, I don't think, in stand-up comedy. You can let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Boy, he was good.
Yeah.
He was so good.
Yeah. He's, like you say, he's an up-and-comer that you recognized, I think, at the beginning of the year, didn't you, Ted?
Yeah, I've been watching his stuff online for the better part of a year, I would say.
You would say that he described him as someone who doesn't follow the political correct.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of Norm Macdonald. He's got a different style than Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
He's more acerbic than Norm Macdonald, but he's got that, if it's funny.
Yep. To hell with you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, for Norm Macdonald, funny was funny.
Yeah.
And that's what Ben Bankus is like. And
What-
he doesn't take any prisoners, and he doesn't attack people.
No,
he's not
no,
an
no.
attack dog comic, but he's not afraid to say what's on his mind. He did stuff about, like, there was lots of Muslim stuff, there was lots of abortion stuff, and it was, you might not agree with what he had to say. You might be on the opposite side of the political fence of it, but it was funny.
You met him after the show because you posted a picture with
yeah.
him, eh? And he wasn't smiley, happy kind of.
No.
Is he a quiet kind of guy?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's
like a lot of comedians.
Yeah, you can ask Matthew. Yeah. Matthew, our producer, works at the Third Floor Comedy Club. Did you get a chance to spend any time with him, Matthew, to meet him and to talk to him?
Not really, no.
No, eh?
I was just working.
You were just working? Yeah, but he was kind of a laid back guy, but he's I think,
Much like Matthew.
a lot like Matthew, yeah.
Yeah.
I think my favorite line was he was talking about Uber Eats, and he said, you never get a Jewish Uber Eats driver. He said, you never get a notification saying Larry Horowitz is 3 minutes away. That line really stuck with me. Larry Horowitz is 3 minutes away.
Speaking of Norm Macdonald, do yourself a favor. If you don't know Norm Macdonald, Google the moth joke.
The best. On the Conan O'Brien show.
It's just one of the all-time great examples of...
It's a masterclass in joke telling.
Thank you very
Another
much.
masterclass in joke telling, Walter Matthau
Yes, on Carson.
on Johnny Carson telling the joke about the hospital breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of
Google
them.
that as well.
Yeah, if you're looking for a laugh that you haven't seen. And speaking of laughs, how about Sugar Sammy? He's a sponsor of this podcast, and he's going on tour. He's actually kind of excited. He sent us some notes telling us that he's added some dates. And I was on his website last night, and there's a great quote from Dan Bilevsky of the New York Times that says, "A fearless comic with a talent for provoking both laughter and outrage," which is how Sam made his bones here in Quebec with Juste pour rire 2, which he's added some shows to. And when you go on his website, it's really cool because you can search shows and you pick your country, your province or your state, your city, and which language you would like to hear him in. And when you go down the list, for example, he'll be in Winnipeg on Friday, January 24th, and it says Winnipeg, Canada, language, English, and then you click on tickets and you get your tickets that way. It's really, really simple. And the shows that he's added, there's a bunch of different shows that he's added for Juste pour rire again. For example, on Friday, March 7th, he's doing the English and French show one more time, and tickets have just been added for 2 shows on Friday, March 7th, and 2 shows on Saturday, March 8th. This is a great Christmas gift, and if you're out of the conversation because you've never seen Sugar Sammy, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Come on.
Do you think he's still considered outrageous, or have people cottoned on to the fact that he's just a guy who's having fun with the circumstances that he grew up in and knows how to make people laugh?
Well, people with a brain figured that out a long time ago, I think. And if you follow him online, if you follow his social media, he has just great fun with people in the audience. I can't think of anybody who does crowd work and thinks as quick on their feet as Sam does. And if you're looking to go to the show, we talk about this every time we mention comedy. What a great bang for the buck. Tickets start at $59.99. And when you think of concert tickets and what they cost these days, and people spending $15,000 on Taylor Swift tickets, not that I ever would, but you know, for a night out for you and your date, an absolutely terrific idea. And these you're going to rear do. That this is going to be the last time you're going to get to see it before he does something completely different. And depending on where you're listening, Gatineau, St. Catharines, Kitchener, Barrie, Fredericton, Charlottetown, Calgary. He's going across the country in 2025. And he's just added some extra tickets in some of those Western Canadian cities. Go to sugarsammy.com and click on your city and go see one of the great talents of our time.
I posted Sammy's latest, or reposted Sammy's latest Facebook post on the podcast account yesterday, and I wrote, "Ricketts at sugarsammy.com makes a great Christmas gift." Fortunately, autocorrect caught that because rickets are a terrible Christmas gift. And then I thought to myself, there's got to be a Shingle Bells joke in there as well. Shingles all the way.
You're catching the holiday spirit. Is it because of Black Friday, Ted?
I don't know.
Are you a Black Friday
No,
shopper?
I have a,
No,
I have a
never have been
resentment
either.
against Black Friday.
Why?
Because what does Black Friday have to do with Canada? Is that not just us piggybacking on an American
Sure
tradition?
is. But it's all about the savings, Ted.
It is, eh?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why do we have Thanksgiving at a different time of the year than them? What are we, like the Greek Orthodox of Thanksgiving people,
Well,
or what?
I think what the theories that I've heard is harvest in Canada is earlier
Okay.
than it is down in the States.
Right.
And down in the States, I think by and large it's based on the Pilgrims meeting with the Indians when they landed.
The natives, you mean?
Yes, I'm sorry. The
Yes.
natives.
Yeah.
Very sorry.
Yeah.
That don't get me in trouble.
No.
But you know what you know what I mean? That's a celebration of that, I think. I'm not American, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah. But Black Friday, to me, that's an American thing.
Yes.
And that's just, that's my problem.
Yes.
That I would be cynical and resentful about that. Like,
Yeah.
But whenever I hear Black Friday commercials on Canadian television and radio, I'm like, that's not a Canadian thing. Stop it.
That's very grandpa.
Isn't it, though? Yeah, I'm
Throwing
yelling
the
at the
remote
clouds.
TV.
Yeah.
Yelling at the clouds.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, by the way?
Yelling at the clouds?
Yeah, what-
I don't know. There's a
is that-
Simpsons
is it-
meme
it-
of Grandpa
Yeah,
Simpson
yeah.
shaking his fist at the clouds.
Okay.
But yeah, that's me.
Okay.
I'm Grandpa yelling at the clouds. What can I tell you?
So this week, Ted and I always have a conversation on. Well, Ted and I speak almost every day, and on Mondays we speak about the podcast and some of the things we want to talk about. Sorry, I'm just having a
Having a little burp?
little indigestion there.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I said to Ted, "You saw my Facebook post," and he said, "Yeah." And I said, should we talk about this on the podcast? And we had the same kind of discussion a couple of weeks ago when Ted and I had a discussion about, do we reference or talk about the American election? And then Ted and I talked about it on an episode of the podcast 2 weeks ago. And our thinking behind it was the American election was probably the biggest story on the planet after the results were announced. And Ted and I said to each other on the phone, it's hard to ignore. We should mention, at least what's transpired. And we did. And then we got a note from somebody saying, I hate when you guys talk about politics. Leave the funny on the table or something to that effect.
Actually, what he said, he didn't say that he hated when we talked about politics.
Yeah.
He said he loves it when we don't.
When we don't,
Yeah,
right.
he said he says one of the core values of the podcast for him, or one of the things he loves about the podcast is that we don't talk about politics. And we made a conscious effort or conscious decision when we started that we were going to avoid politics.
Yes.
And for the most part, we have.
Yes.
It's just that story was the elephant in the room.
It's kind of hard to ignore. And I kind of take issue because my point that when we talked about the election was the reaction to the election, not the politics of the election.
We weren't taking sides.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave that on the table. So Ted and I had the same discussion yesterday about my post. If you follow me on Facebook, you may have seen it. I have been saddened and sickened and ashamed, to be honest with you, of the rising anti-Semitism in Canada, because that's what it is. And if you live in Montreal, and if you're from Montreal, we have such a huge, vibrant, lovely Jewish community in this city. And people in that community are not just our friends. Some of them are like family to us. And when we think of the myriad of Jewish friends that we have, increasingly when I see what I see online and on television, I get sick and I start to think about my friends and how they must feel. And I posted something on Facebook. I used the slide from Second Cup, the company based here in Montreal that ended their franchise agreement with someone who has been involved in anti-Semitic demonstrations, who oddly enough ran a coffee shop at the Jewish General Hospital where I was born. And I was really pleased by the swift action that the president of Second Cup took. They verified what happened and they ended the agreement, the franchise agreement, with the person involved. And if you're wondering about Second Cup in the Jewish General Hospital, it has reopened. As of today, it's open. It's being run by the company. It's now a corporate store for now. Apparently, they have over 200 applications to become a franchisee and run that store. So Second Cup is not in trouble, and they have dispensed with the person who spent their spare time disparaging Jewish people. And I just wanted to mention it on the podcast because if you listen to this podcast, we just wanted to say how we support the Jewish community, how we are I don't even know how to say this without sparking some kind of controversy, but we're Team Israel.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, and
Full stop.
I'll tell you why I'm Team Jew and Team Israel, because like you, I've been here for 40 years now. I have a lot of Jewish friends and associates and acquaintances, and I've known Holocaust survivors. I know children and grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, and in the immediate aftermath of October 7th of 2023, which saw the worst perpetration of mass murder against Jews since the Holocaust, the collective sense of fear and unease among my Jewish friends and neighbors and acquaintances was palpable and spoke volumes to me.
And I think more of us have to speak out, because I kept waiting for it to stop, and it isn't stopping, it's growing. And you must, if you know anything about history, you must speak out. It has to stop. And there are ways to demonstrate your distaste for a particular political view of countries without perpetrating the ugly, ugly hate that's been on display in the major cities this past year.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be getting worse. And I just thought, and spoke to my friends and checked in with some of them, and I thought, we don't have a huge platform, but with the small platform that we have, Ted and I said, we have to mention it. We have to speak out. Ted said to me, what would you do if you had a radio show? You know, if we were still doing morning radio, would we mention it? Absolutely.
Yeah. And I've been supportive on my social media.
You have been.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback from my friends in the Jewish community saying, and people I don't even know in the Jewish community saying, thank you.
Yeah. Because it means something to people who are, as you say, uneasy and in some cases frightened these days. It's sickening and it's shameful, and I can't believe it's happening in 2024.
And the Montreal Jewish community is a pillar of the broader community. Montreal would be diminished without its Jewish community.
Well, Montreal wouldn't be Montreal without the Jewish community. Yeah. And when I lived in BC, you know, and people talked to me about why I was going back, and I would say, you know, I miss this, I miss that, and I'd say, and I miss the Jews. I do.
Are there no Jews in Vancouver?
Well, it's a very, very small community, and you can't get a decent sandwich anywhere. There's no great Jewish delis, and we sit in a building where, you know, the Shmata community was massive.
Yeah, this used to be a sewing factory.
Yeah, it used to be a sewing factory and has so much, they just have so much history here. And as I said in my Facebook post, they're friends, and, you know, these are our friends and our fellow citizens and our brothers and our sisters. And in some cases, some of the people that I've known for many, many years feel like family to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Speaking of which, don't we have a standing invite to Walensky's? Didn't I see that in an email somewhere?
Yes, we do. Yeah. The Walensky's, well, look at that. That place has been there since the 1800s. No, not that long, but it's been there for a very long time. Yeah, I don't have the letter in front of me, but the family said, hey, where are you guys? You know, get in here.
We're coming.
Yeah. That's one of the things, the other things we were talking about this week is it's part of what makes the fabric of the city so special. You know, Jess and I, one of our favorite restaurants, if not our favorite restaurant is the Monkland Tavern on Monkland. Barb Irwin and Josh have been running that place for I don't know how long. And I was talking to Barb when we were in there on Saturday night, and I said, this is one of the things that I missed when we were away. Restaurants and places like Walensky's, like the Monkland Tavern, you know, these Montreal institutions that have been there for a long time that have a special, I don't even know how to describe it to friends from out of town. It's a the Monkland Tavern the food is outstanding. They make you feel like family, and the atmosphere is a little bit of, it's Montreal with a little bit of New York sprinkled in, with the dim lighting and the nice tablecloths and the warm welcome. Those are places that, like Walensky's, are so much part of the fabric of the city,
and they're unique.
And that's the thing,
won't at any of those places. You won't find any other place that's exactly like that.
No, I didn't find it when I lived in Winnipeg. I didn't find it when I lived in Calgary, and I certainly didn't find it when I lived in Vancouver. And maybe that's because I'm a Montrealer. I'm sure there's people that are listening, maybe in Calgary or Vancouver, that would say, "Yeah, well, we got a place like that." But there's
don't have as many places like that, though.
No, that's and it's a I think it's a really special. It's a hallmark of the city, and it's what makes the city unique. Still, despite all our problems with potholes and politics and all the other shit.
Let's talk about Acutech, and then let's do the tweet sheet, because I've got a one-act play on the tweet sheet today. I'm quite excited.
Already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Acutech Electric. That's why you should call them.
I'm sure that's not why we're not doing a very good ad for them like that.
No, that's actually that's why. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, don't try to do it yourself, or as Terry says, don't call Uncle Charlie and get him to come over and do it. Call the pros. When it comes to electricity, when it comes to stuff that could kill you, call the professionals.
Yeah, because no one loves a fire.
No.
Acutech Electric is a business that's been around since 1995. Tom's dad started that company that year and slowly grew the company through word of mouth and great work and an honest work ethic and honesty, period. One of the things I say about, you call a contractor or you call an electrician, and, that's one of those businesses where if you don't know anything about it and there's a guy standing in front of your fuse box going, "Oh boy,"
that's going to run you.
Yeah, that's not the way they do business. And they can do anything. They can look after, changing your fuse box. If you bought like a war era house, there's still lots of those around that people are renovating, and you need somebody to redo the electric work. They can do that. If you've bought a brand new business and you want to redo the lighting, they can do that.
If you've bought a war era house and you're going to knock it down and build a new one, they'll do the electricity in your new home.
And at this time of the year, a lot of people talk about generators. A lot of people are beginning to rely on generators. That's not something that you can plug in the wall, but it's something Acutech can help you with. Acutech Electric. It's ACUTECH.ca. Acutech.ca. Or you can call them and talk to Trish. She'll get you all set up and make sure that you're pointed in the right direction.
The tweet sheet is something we do weekly on the podcast, where I find 3 things that make me laugh on Twitter, and we share them. And this week's is going to include it's going to conclude with a little one-act play, Tara. So
very good.
You'll need your headphones, because there's a production element to it.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's kind of like being at the Oscars.
Yeah. We'll start with this one from @DirtMcHurt, lawyer. I would like to call my next witness, Sprinkles the cat. Judge, would Sprinkles the cat please...
Good one.
From @John Lyon tweets, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, except for that guy in the park who thinks he's Napoleon. He's fighting the Battle of Trafalgar, but mostly you don't know.
I love people who spend time coming up with these things and spend the day on Twitter doing that.
That's very well crafted, actually.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah.
And the last one from @ShortSleeveSuit. My harmonica eulogy is not going over well. So I thought about that, and I thought, how can we demonstrate how a harmonica eulogy would not go over well, how that wouldn't work? And so here's what I've come up with. Matthew? Dearly beloved, we are gathered here at this time of great sadness to remember a man who influenced or who infused joy into the most mundane tasks. Bill was a kind and thoughtful person who always focused on the things he was grateful for. And, hey, Slim Harpo, how about you put a fucking sock in that mouth organ, or I'll bury it and you alongside it. And that is how a harmonica eulogy does not go over. Ta-da!
No. That's a little bit of theater on the podcast this week. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice entryway into me mentioning some of the stuff that I've been watching on the TV. I thought I would mention. I've cottoned on to something called Landman. Landman, let's see now. We got so many services. It's on Paramount. And it stars Billy Bob Thornton, Demi Moore, and John Hamm. Great cast. And it's written by Elsie Farnbaum.
Taylor Sheridan.
That's right, Taylor Sheridan.
Who sometimes goes by Elsie Farnbaum.
Yeah, I couldn't remember Taylor's name. This is the guy who's writing all kinds of shows.
Well, he's the creator of Yellowstone.
Yeah, and Landman is, some people have compared it to, what Yellowstone is to ranches, Landman is to oil, because it's based in Texas. It's a story of a struggling small oil company. And I am such a massive fan of Billy Bob Thornton. Not personally, I don't know anything about him. He seems a little wacky. But in terms of acting, the job that he did, he was introduced to the world with Sling Blade. The job that he did on Fargo, the television version of Fargo that was filmed in Calgary. And now what he's doing in Landman is just spectacular to watch. And I highly recommend it. If you're a John Hamm or Demi Moore fan, so far, 3 episodes in, I think. I watched the 3rd episode just the other night. John Hamm doesn't appear that often. The show is focused around Billy Bob Thornton, and he is fantastic. And it's really interesting because there's a subtle message from Taylor Sheridan about how he feels about
the greening of
fossil fuels and climate. It's
quote unquote greening of
highly
energy policy.
Highly recommend it. And
the clip that you sent me, clip that you sent me, reminded me of. Have you posted that clip on social media?
Not, and you should. Yeah, I should repost.
It reminded me of when my friend Zach was on the Morning Show podcast in this very studio with myself and George Santrisos and Poseidon. And Zach ran oil rigs in the States. Zach's an engineer, and he worked on, not just worked on, he ran oil rigs. He was like, he's one of the foremost directional drillers in the world. And he was talking about energy and the greening of energy policy. And he explained, and it was really interesting to hear him explain it, about how much fossil fuel is consumed in the manufacture of one electric car.
Right.
He said his 1967 Ford F-150 pickup has done less damage to the environment in 50 years than your Tesla has done before it even drives off the lot, because of the amount of energy that goes into fossil fuel energy that goes into the manufacture of electric cars. It was a real eye-opener.
There is a speech in this episode that just aired on Sunday night that Billy Bob Thornton gives, not a speech, but it's a scene that they shot in front of wind farm. And when I was watching the episode, I thought, this particular scene, for sure someone's going to post it, it's going to go viral, and it already has. I won't do it justice, but I'll just give you an idea. Billy Bob Thornton is explaining to a lawyer from outside of Texas how wind farms can't survive without fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And it's quite a speech. And of course, the people who don't believe the climate is changing are all over it and posting it all over the social media. And I will try and retweet it. But I'm not talking about the political tilt of the show. The show is really, really well crafted and fascinating and explores a world that I know nothing about. And because of the acting, the superb acting, and
writing.
Yeah, pretty good writing too. I highly recommend it. Again, it's on Paramount, and as Ted and I always talk about on the podcast, it's ridiculous the amount of services you know. If you want to watch Prime hockey, you got to get Prime. If you want to watch the NFL, you got to get DAZN. If you want to watch Fraser, you got to get Paramount. It's like one thing after another. Netflix and all kinds of services that
I've canceled them all.
You've canceled all of them, eh?
I've got cable.
Yeah,
I've got cable.
Oh,
and
you do
YouTube.
have cable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. For now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you had an antenna.
No, I may get one though.
Put it on 12.
Yeah.
The other piece of entertainment I wanted to mention was, and I realized after I watched it, I looked it up and I thought, oh, Christ, this thing's 2016. What's that, 9 years old?
Yeah, it will be next year.
Yeah, 9 years old. Are you a fan of Chicago? I loved the band Chicago.
You know who I'm a fan of? I'm a fan of a band called, a bunch of Russians called Leonid and Friends who do Chicago covers, and they kill it.
Yeah.
They absolutely kill it.
Yeah, with
and
the horns and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they've
yeah.
brought me to Chicago. They've brought me very late to the Chicago party.
I love Chicago. I always loved Chicago when I was a kid. And there's a film out on Prime. If you have Prime, you have to go looking for it because it's an old film. And it was one of those days where there was nothing to watch. Amazing. We got all these services and I couldn't find anything I wanted to watch. And I stumbled upon a film called The Terry Kath Experience. Terry Kath was one of the originators of Chicago back in the mid-1970s. From Chicago, was a guitar player that Jimi Hendrix loved. Jimi Hendrix thought Terry Kath was one of the great guitar players of all time. How about that? And he initiated put together the band. Great guitar player, great singer. And unfortunately, at the age, I think, of 31 in 1978, right at the height of the success of Chicago, he was playing with a handgun and died. And his life was cut very short, and we were robbed of a lot of great music. And his daughter, Michelle Sinclair is her name, put together this documentary film about Terry Kath. And it sheds light on not only his originating of the band Chicago and its success, but shines a lot of light on what an unbelievable guitar player he was. And I'm telling you this because I love music and I love music documentaries, and I still listen to music in the car. And if you're of a certain age, Chicago recalls a time in your life that was, full of youth and fun, and some of their songs, 25 or 624, I'm a Man, their first album was a double album.
It's funny that you mentioned those two songs because I was going to say, before or after you watch that documentary, just go on YouTube, Leonid and Friends, and their Chicago covers of those two songs, 25 or 64 and I'm a Man. They fucking crush it.
I didn't know until I watched this movie, Terry Kath's widow, because I never knew what 25 or 624 meant.
I still don't.
Right. And Terry Kath's widow explained that Terry wrote that song after a night of binging on cocaine and booze and looking at the clock and saying, is it 25 or 26 to 4? Should we do more? And if you listen to I'm not going to be able to listen to the song now without thinking of that story that she tells in this documentary. Anyway, listen, if you're a music fan and you loved the band Chicago, or even if you loved that era of music, there's all kinds of people in it. There's Joe Walsh is in it. It was Harlem.
Hey, you can sing along, or if you can't sing, just yell. That's what I do.
Yeah, Joe Walsh, all kinds of club owners, all the guys from the band Chicago. It's terrific. It's called the Terry Kath Experience. Yep, it was filmed in 2016, but it's from his daughter's perspective, and it's a fascinating look at a band that I didn't know very much about, and it's a real eye opener. I think you'll really like it. It's on Prime.
Do you know how old she was when he died?
Yeah, she was just a baby. She was born, I think, in 76.
So she never really got to know
Never
her
got
dad.
to know him. So that's part of why she made the film. It's a journey to sort of get to know her dad. She interviews all his friends and his brother, and it's really, really interesting.
Did you get something in your eye when you were watching it?
I didn't. It wasn't.
good.
It wasn't like watching.
It wasn't like the Tragically Hip
no,
documentary?
No. It's pretty good. Yeah, it was great. And Ted and I have talked about this before, how it comes with age.
Yeah, well, you get sentimental. The older you get, the more sentimental.
And I was told to beware of it. I didn't notice a difference because I was always a crybaby. But post
That's true. You always have been a big crybaby.
Post heart surgery, they tell you that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they say
Interesting.
people who have had heart surgery are quicker to cry post surgery.
Well, it's a wonder you can keep it together at all. It's a wonder it's just not a constant puddle of tears.
Yeah. Don't show me the picture of the cat. We should say hi to our friends at Meren. I was thinking of them this morning when I left our home in the Laurentians, and the sound of freezing rain was clickety-clacking all over the truck.
Jeez.
And I thought to myself, oh, thank goodness I followed Ted's lead and got my snow tires on early. Do you think they're still putting on snow tires? Probably.
I was actually in there yesterday
Were
because
you?
I dropped my car off at Jacob and Jacob down the street, which is one of the places that when I needed body work for my car, Celso at Meren said, go down the street and see Jack at Jacob and Jacob. And it was one of the best pieces of advice as a car owner I've ever received. Jack does such great work. And that's another thing you get at Meren. You get connections to other really good, honest, trustworthy professionals in the automotive industry. Anyway, I had time to kill, so I stopped in to see Kara and Celso. And I asked Kara, can you still get an appointment to get your winter tires changed before the deadline, which is December 1st? And she said, as of right now, and this was Monday, as of right now, yes, but with wet weather in the forecast for Tuesday and possibly Wednesday, no promises. So, as always, the sooner the better.
Yeah. The Merens are busy at this time of the year because that's what happens when you build a business like that over the course of 50 plus years. People talk about you, and it's word of mouth. And your neighbors will tell you that you should go to Meren. We've been telling you for years to go to Meren. And I have never, I was thinking about this the other day, never in all of the time that we've been recommending Meren, I've never had anybody say to me, hey, I went there and I had a bad experience. Never happened.
No, nor have I.
No. And it just speaks to how they conduct themselves and how they make honesty sort of one of the main pillars of how they built their business. And it's so refreshing in this day and age of what do you want? And it's true. I mean, there's a lot of
What is it now?
Yeah, what can I do for you? It's, like I said, when I brought my car in, I had a little party in the waiting room with other people who were waiting. There's such a nice vibe in that shop. And then when I went to the counter, Celso, called me over and he said to me, your brakes are good. Your tires are good for at least another couple of seasons. We checked the wipers. Your oil level is fine. Your antifreeze is fine. All stuff that I didn't ask them to do. They did to make sure when you drive off the lot, your snow tires are on and your car is safe.
Yeah, they'll take care of you, and they will never sell you a product you don't need or do a service on your car that is not required until you need it or require it.
Meren's, corner of Saint Jacques and Cavendish. You can also call them at 487-5545. That's another one of those phone numbers I never forget.
Yeah.
You know, like your phone number from your childhood.
Yeah.
I saw a great meme the other day about, how is it you can't remember the password you created this morning, but you can remember your phone number from when you were a kid?
Well, probably because you only had one phone number when you were a kid, and you've got
true.
73 passwords for all your different social media and television streaming services and banks.
Do you remember some buddies' phone numbers? Like Tim's phone number was 684-7085.
Yeah. Zeke was, what was Zeke? 472-7388.
See?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
And that's like 60, well, not 60, but 55 years ago.
It's got to be 130 years ago.
Yeah.
At least. Feels like it. Are you a we were talking about Thanksgiving earlier. Are you, now that you're retired, a Thanksgiving football day guy? You going to sit in front of the TV
I
for
guess
Thanksgiving?
the Giants are playing the Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Boy, what a soap opera that's turned
holy
into,
smokes. Well, both teams suck. The Cowboys suck this year, too. Not as bad as the Giants, but I think the Cowboys had much bigger expectations than the Giants. And the Giants released Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Their hugely disappointing, overpriced quarterback.
It was interesting
this week.
Interesting, I thought that he read a statement off a piece of paper like a kid in grade 11.
Yeah. That was probably at the direction of his agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think he's going to end up with another club?
You know what? Numerous people have said on social media, and I think this would be great. I'd love to see Dak Prescott, the Cowboys starting quarterback, is injured. I think he's gone for the season. And people are saying if Jerry Jones had any sense of adventure, he would have sign Daniel Jones and start him against the Giants on Thanksgiving. That would be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and I wouldn't feel terrible if Daniel Jones kicked their ass.
Yeah.
Wherever he ends up, I would like to see him come back to New York just for one day and kick their ass.
Do you think he's a talented quarterback?
I think he's very talented. He just can't seem – he's got all the tools, but he can't seem to put it all together. He did one year – 2022, 2 seasons ago, he took them to the playoffs. He had a great year, and I was like, that's Daniel Jones that I've been waiting for right there. But then he regressed last year and again this year. I think it might have – football's such a complicated game.
Yeah.
I know the rules, and I can watch a game and know what's going on, but I don't know defensive schemes and all of that. And I think that maybe he just, as a quarterback – I don't think he processes necessarily what's happening on the field quickly enough to make the decisions. Like, I think that's what Tom Brady was really good at.
Yeah.
Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick. Didn't have the physical gifts that a lot of quarterbacks have, but is a smart guy and was able to process. He knows how to process what's happening on the field.
When you see the early film of him, when he was when he was about to be drafted, and you see the early film of Tom Brady, you think, who's this lanky, skinny,
Also, he was coached by Bill Belichick. So, I think Bill Belichick's a bit of an arsehole, but he's a great coach.
So are the Giants now left with Tony Labuti there?
Yeah, they've got Danny DeVito. What's his name? Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito. Yeah. And your thoughts?
Well,
yeah.
I'm sure he's a lovely fellow.
Well, he's a local kid.
And he's a New Jersey kid.
Yeah,
so
that has...
Yeah, but they got the shit kicked out of them by Tampa Bay this weekend, and I think he got sacked like 6 or 7 times. Yeah. Like, he just stands there and holds on to the ball and goes, oh, no, here they come.
Here comes another truck. We watch the games, and I say to Jess, holy shit, this guy's going to be bruised all week long. Do you have a favorite? Are you watching close enough to predict a winner?
A Super Bowl winner?
Yeah.
No, not really.
No.
I have 2 teams I would like to see get to the Super Bowl, and that's Detroit and the other guys who I like. Yeah.
I love
the Lions.
I love Dan Campbell.
Yeah, I do too. The Lions and what's the other team? It's another team that's never won it, which is why I'd like to see them get there.
Okay.
Maybe it's Cleveland. I don't know. What are you asking me for?
And that's our look at sports.
But that's a good segue into our what's my computer password again? I knew it this morning.
Tits McGee.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you were right. There's a Super Bowl party to end all Super Bowl parties.
Yes.
That's going to be taking place that we want to publicize because if you've heard our voices on the radio this week, that's because we're doing a commercial for this Super Bowl party. It's for an organization called the Foundation Neuro Efficiency, which was started by a friend of mine named David Garfinkel and David's friend, Eric Boyer. David and Eric are a couple of guys, smart, successful, and life dealt them a real shit hand. Eric had a skiing accident. David had a surfing accident, and now they're both wheelchair bound. I believe if I've got the terminology right, Eric is paraplegic. He still has the use of his upper body. David is a quadriplegic. He's paralyzed from the chest down. And instead of sitting around and feeling sorry for themselves, they've both decided they're going to do something about it. So they've formed the Neuro Efficiency Foundation. You can visit their website at n-eff.ca and learn more about them. It's such a great story. Two guys who have every reason in the world to sit around and feel sorry for themselves and won't, refuse to. They're going to make something out of, like, lemonade out of lemons, as they say.
And they've organized a hell of a party.
This party, February 9th at Café Amea in the Maison Alcan, is going to be catered by Restaurant Beatrice. You ever been?
No.
I've heard about it, though.
Yeah.
Apparently it's 5-star,
Yes.
one of the best restaurants in Montreal. And that's David. Like, David won't, David does nothing half-assed or second class. If David Garfinkel puts on a party, you can bet it's going to be a first-class party. So at Café Amea, catered by Restaurant Beatrice, all you can eat, all you can drink, wall-to-wall big screen TV, free parking as part of your ticket price, no dress code, come as you are, like dress, please.
Yeah, put pants on. Yeah.
Yeah, but nothing fancy. Just show up and eat and drink and enjoy the football game and some live music before the football game. If you want to really cut loose, they've got a deal with the Cantley Hotel, which is either right next door or just down the street with special rates, so you can book that. Go to n-eff.ca, click on our events, and you'll see the Super Bowl party details. Click on About Us as well, and watch the video. Take the 4.5 minutes to watch the video on their front page that explains the origins of the organization. Just so inspiring.
It's not about us.
So inspiring.
It's not about me and you.
Yeah.
Click on About Us. Yeah, and I thought, about them. Right. There you go. Yeah.
Learn about them, and then go to our events and click on the Super Bowl party link, and it's going to be a hell of a
it's going to be a great bash.
A hell of a bash. There. I can guarantee you. Yeah. And this is not hyperbole. There's not going to be a better Super Bowl party in Montreal.
I agree 100%. Yeah. We're pleased to be associated with it.
And they're selling individual tickets and corporate tickets. If you're a company and you want to buy a corporate table, you'll get bang for your buck, and you'll also be supporting a fantastic cause. n-eff.ca, the Neuro Efficiency Foundation. Their mission, in a nutshell, is to help paraplegics and quadriplegics who don't have access to the kinds of services and care that David and Eric have access to because, they were successful and are successful businessmen.
Yeah, they have the means to access that.
Yeah.
And David, a lot of people don't.
And what always struck me about David is I knew David before his surfing accident, and a successful businessman, good-looking guy, played hockey at Colgate. That's not Ivy League, I don't think. Or is it? Is Colgate Ivy League?
Not sure.
Anyway.
We are not Ivy League, so we don't know.
Not. No. But David had the world by the tail.
Yeah.
And nobody was more humble and grateful than he was. And this is pre-accident. This is before he had his surfing accident and ended up in a wheelchair. And we were out for dinner one night. And he said, nobody knows better than me that I'm a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. And then that happened to him.
Yeah.
You know, how
Yeah,
do you,
more
how
than
does,
likely, yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why him? Yeah. Why a guy who has that kind of gratitude and humility? Why would that happen to him?
Well, and as you point out, he doesn't spend his days asking that question. He's trying to give back and
exactly.
do something.
Yeah.
Give the website one more time, Ted.
N-EFF.ca, the Neuro Efficiency Foundation.
The opposite end of that party would be the Toy Tea.
Yes.
Right. We'll be at the Toy Tea this week.
This Friday afternoon, Terry and I are going to be there. I believe there's a morning and an afternoon tea.
Yeah.
This is an event that's being put on to raise money to buy toys for children who will be spending Christmas in domestic violence shelters with their mothers. And it's put on by our great and good new friend, Ginger Petty, who founded this 33 years ago. This event, it's going to be held at an undisclosed location. The location is so fancy that we can't disclose it. Yeah, but if you go to toyteamontreal.org, you'll see all of the details. And Terry and I are going to be there for the afternoon tea session, wearing our jackets and ties.
Got to go to the dry cleaners tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to pick up my suit.
Yep. Good chance, again, to support a terrific organization that's doing good things for people who otherwise would not be able to afford what's being done for them.
Let's talk about Christmas shopping and our friends at Robert Reche Jewelers.
Have you bought Jess her gift at Robert Reche Jewelers yet?
Jess is in BC this week. Maybe I should sneak over there this week. Yeah. She heard you talking about it, and she said, "Do not buy me diamonds."
Why would she say that?
Jess listens to the podcast.
She's going to be so mad when she sees the podcast this week because she keeps telling us, "Don't put brand labels on the table." I had this, and I had some. What did I have?
Yeah, and I'm drinking out of it. Yeah, I know.
Advil.
Yeah.
Don't forget to take Advil with your Nile water, friends.
Jess is in BC this week working, and so it would be a good opportunity for me to go buy a bag of diamonds.
There you go, a bag.
You got a bag of diamonds? Listen, when we talk about Robert Reche Jewelers, one of the things that we love is because it's a family-run shop, the way you're welcomed there. You don't have to be intimidated. I always said I used to be intimidated by things like museums and jewelry stores. I never thought I would be welcome in a place like that because I didn't have any money and I didn't think, you were allowed to look at anything nice. If you didn't have the money, that's not the way you get treated when you walk in the door at Robert Reche Jewelers. It doesn't matter your budget. They'll find you something to suit it. If it's a big anniversary, some people celebrating a silver anniversary, for example, might be looking for something spectacular. Or maybe you're just looking for a little necklace, or some kind of pendant for Christmas. This is a great place to shop and a great place to find high-quality people and high-quality jewelry. It's a nice local business that's been there for a very long time.
They also do services like watch repair, or if you need. Did you say you needed new batteries for?
I've got
some of your battery-driven watches.
Yeah, I've got 2 battery-driven watches that I've been turned away from a number of places. These were in BC. I went into what I thought were helpful small places, and they said, "Yeah, no, we don't do that."
I also happen to know that they've resized somebody's Stanley Cup ring. So I won't say who.
No.
Out of courtesy to their anonymity and privacy, but I know that someone came in with their Stanley Cup rings, plural.
Yeah.
So guess who he played for?
Yeah.
And I don't know if his fingers got fatter as he got older, or if they got skinnier. But he needed them resized.
Let's just say he didn't drive in from Toronto.
No.
They also told me they could take care of my wedding ring, too, because sometimes you need that spruced up. I'm telling you, you're going to love the visit to Robert Reche Jewelers. Even if you leave without anything, you're going to love the visit because they're nice people. And they can talk. These people are well-versed in the area of jewelry and diamonds. Like they're experts.
Yeah.
It's what
Know
they
their
do.
stuff.
Yeah.
Pierre and Linda and Carol. Carol's
Yes.
the one with the purple hair. What are you doing, Carol?
Yeah, it's
With
just
your purple hair.
just across from the Flim Flam.
That's right, just across from the Dorval Mall at 309 Dorval Avenue.
Well, I'm not sure, Ted, but I think we've come to the end of the road.
It seems like this is the end.
just
This
for-
is the
yeah.
end.
Just for the week, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Should I come up from underwater? Like, is it Martin Sheen in Apocalypse Now who comes up from under the water?
I think it's him, yeah.
Yeah, this is the end.
Yeah. I'll be Brando.
Colonel Kurtz.
Do you remember when you first saw that movie?
No.
Because I was such a massive Godfather fan, and then a few years later, Apocalypse Now came out, and I went, it's because I think Coppola kind of shot Brando in sort of half light because he'd put on a fair amount of weight.
Yeah.
But it kind of works with the character, I think.
Yeah. I think my introduction to Brando, and I don't know if I ever watched the movie, but I just remember as an adolescent boy being quite titillated by the posters, was Last Tango in Paris.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do. That was quite controversial at the time.
Yeah.
And then mine was...
Now it'd be a TV show.
Yeah. It'd be on Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the time it was quite controversial, and some people said pornographic.
Yeah. What was her name, that actress? Was it Maria Schneider?
Very
Was
good.
that
I her
her
think
name?
that's what it
Yeah.
was. I'm guessing, but I think that's what it was. But also Brando had, Stella, and I could have been somebody, and then of course for me it was The Godfather.
Yeah. I think he actually was in the New York Times Sunday crossword last week.
Was he?
His character in... Was his character in A Streetcar Named Desire? Do you remember what the character's name was?
Oh God, I'm going to put me on the spot.
Well, was it Kowalski?
Yes.
Because Kowalski was the answer. What's that from?
Kowalski was on the waterfront, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you can send us a note if we're wrong.
Yeah.
Standing by the podcast at gmail.com. Did I get it?
You did.
All right. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Both Ted and I have personal accounts. And the Standing By podcast has a Facebook page, which, thank you very much, by the way, is growing in whatever they call it. Viewers, listers.
Likes, followers.
Followers. That's
There
it.
you go.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
growing in followers on Facebook. So thank you for that. And we appreciate you telling people about the episodes that you download wherever you get a podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, hi! I was just waving.
Also, let me mention that I will be cracking wise at a couple of locations this coming weekend. Friday night, I'll be part of the 8 o'clock show at the Comedy Nest in the Forum in downtown Montreal. And Sunday night, I'll be part of the lineup for a charity fundraiser at McKibben's in Point Claire for Nourishment for Hope. I'm going to do my Ben Bankus. Oh, you please, you come now, Olivia Chow. Please bring canned goods or non-perishable food items because they're not paying me and I got to eat.
Okay.
No, that's not true. It's for the charity.
Where is it again?
That one's at McKibben's.
Okay.
Go to my Facebook page and you can see.
Go on. Go to my Facebook page. What are you asking?
Get over
me
there. I don't know. Look on Facebook and you'll see ticket information.
Our thanks to our producer, Matthew, and thanks to you for listening. We're back next week with another episode.
Standing By, the Terry and Ted podcast, has been brought to you by the UPS Store Canada, delivering full-service solutions for your small business.